So recap is this: a joint is defined as a junction where two bones connect. Examples of joints are going to be known as sutures in the skull, shoulder joint, elbow joint. Now notice all these, the three examples of the joints I provided for you are found in different locations, but they also have different type of movements involved. Okay, so when you look at any joint, there are two features worth noting when you examine the joints. First feature is the structure of a joint. You want to examine the structure and integrity of a joint to see how stable the joint is. And the second feature worth noting is the functional aspect of the joint, which examines the range of motion performed at the joint. In essence, it examines how mobile the joint is. So there are two ways of classifying the joint based on the structure or based on the function. Let's examine the structure first. When you examine the structure of a joint, you are examining the structural connection used at the joint. And the structural connection could be fibrous tissue, which are very, very tough, cartilage, or synovial cavity. So the structural connection defines, or the structural connection used at the joint defines how stable a joint could be. The second type of classification is based on the function. It examines the range of motion performed at the joint, which means it examines how mobile the joint is. So in essence, when you look at the joint mobility, you are actually examining how much range of motion could be performed at the joint. In fact, joint mobility depends on its anatomical design, which means joint mobility depends on the structural connection used at the joint. So there's an inverse relationship between the structure versus the function. And what that means is this: there's an inverse relationship between how stable a joint is versus how mobile a joint is. For example, the shoulder joint is very, very stable. Oh, well, actually, no, I made a mistake on that. The shoulder joint is very mobile, but very unstable. And for that reason, it's very easy to dislocate a shoulder joint. There's a trade-off between strength and mobility. Strength means how stable the joint is, and mobility means how much range of motion it has. Mobility of a joint depends on its anatomical design. That means joints that permit no movement or slight movements are common in the exoskeleton, whereas joint that permits more movement are more common in the appendicular skeleton.